Good day, educators! This is Precious M.G. Evora, and today we will be discussing Chapter 8, Developing Materials for the Acquisition of Language. In this chapter, we will be focusing on three important key points. And my first point will be learner-centered principles or approaches is important in the acquisition of grammatical competence. But you might be wondering, what is really the best way or approach to help students to become grammar competent? Grammar is overemphasized in most language courses. Here are some pedagogical approaches that Tomlinson mentioned under the acquisition of grammatical competence. We have the PPP, discovery approaches, and task-based approach. Task-based and discovery approach is highly recommended for they provide learner-centered principle in learning. As a 21st century educator and material developer, it is vital that I know how to facilitate learner-centered teaching, especially in teaching a language. Students nowadays are very active and they learn best when the classroom is engaged in meaningful interaction. Second language acquisition is also best learned when learners are engaged in interaction and meaningful communication that would help them experience communicative production. Next is the acquisition of lexical competence. Vocabulary has gained center stage in literature on language teaching and is becoming more prominent in language learning materials. But how should vocabulary be taught to fully acquire lexical competence? So my point number 2 is this. Multiple and repeated encounters of the word in the acquisition of lexical competence is really important. Students acquire and learn vocabulary best when they are repeatedly encountered. The more a word is repeated and recycled, the more the chances of being remembered. To make this possible, they must be encouraged to do extensive readings, respond to a text and its meaning, perform a task to produce a text, and give students opportunity to discover more about the text. And this approach is called text-based vocabulary teaching. Of course, teachers should guide the students throughout the process for further questions and clarifications. Next, we have the acquisition of pragmatic competence. And our point number 3 is providing rich and authentic experience of language in the acquisition of pragmatic competence. So the question is PPP approach enough for learners to acquire pragmatic competence? Most course books in the late 1970s and 1980s used PPP approach in teaching pragmatics. Students will be given drills from the textbook and at the end of the class, they are tasked to role play. However, PPP is not enough for a learner to acquire pragmatic competence. It is through reflective and exploratory practice that motivate learners acquire pragmatic competence. Materials should provide authentic interaction in which students get to use the pragmatic they learned in a real setting. This will help students notice how language can be used in actual communication. As Tomlinson is saying, learners need to acquire the ability to use the grammar, lexis, and the pragmatic exponents of a language and not just know about them. As a material developer, it is one of my priorities to develop a learning material which is suitable and effective to my target learners. These 3 takeaways that I have gathered from my reading help me to realize the importance of facilitating a learner-centered classroom, which teachers should and must consider. That is why, as a material developer, I should not focus on just giving information. Rather, I should allow my target learners to experience the language, find meaning in the language, and discover more about the language. I should learn to step out from what has been accustomed of doing. I should learn to innovate and create a much engaging materials to help my target learners to have fun while learning. In this way, I am making the work easier for teachers, for myself, to teach the language, and will help teachers lessen their workload. Material developers, educators, let not your passion for teaching grow weak. Innovate, create, and educate. And this is Precious MG Evora, and thank you so much for listening and watching my vlog.